I have brought a very tricky and interesting scenario for discussion in this video. I personally like this question a lot and thought to make a video to help you guys understand the concept of a secondary risk. Let me quickly read out the scenario, then we will talk about it. In a project to promote public health and mitigate health risk, the national health authorities intend to take actions to limit the risk of harmful insects by using pesticides. However, it is expected that some residents will have negative health effects due to the use of the pesticides. But according to the assessment completed by the health authorities, not moving forward with this plan will have much more serious consequences on the public health rather than following through with this plan. So how should the project manager address this concern with the health authorities? Like I said, this is an interesting scenario. So quickly, option choices, and then we will discuss the 4 choices one by one. A, suspend the project as a secondary risk will negatively impact residents' health, which is not acceptable. B, consult with the health experts to provide a risk trigger before using pesticides that will impact the residents. C, assess and record associated secondary risks and proceed to treat them as any other risk. And D, proceed with the project as normal since a minor number of residents will be affected negatively. So first we need to understand the situation. This is definitely a risky situation. This is why being discussed in RMP category. So this is a scenario related to public health management and to mitigate health risk, the authorities intend to take some actions to limit the risk of harmful insects. So the primary risk being talked about is the risk or the impact associated with harmful insect for the general audience or the residents in that area. So the response plan to that risk is how they are limiting the impact of harmful insects by using pesticides. This much is clear. So the primary risk, the impact of that, and the response plan to cater that. Now the situation. While applying this response plan, it is expected. So this is an anticipation. Please keep this in consideration. This is an anticipation or expectation that some residents will be impacted with the health issues, right, due to the use of pesticides. However, at the same time, its use is recommended than not going with this application of pesticide because the benefits are outweighing the negative impacts. Clear? Which means that whatever is the plan, the authorities will prefer to go with that response plan. They are not going to compromise on that plan. Okay? So how the project manager or a risk manager is going to address this health concern? So what are we facing over here? We are talking about a primary risk, its impact, the action that the authorities recommend to go for, and the situation, the expected situation that may arise while implementing the response of that primary risk. This is the situation we are facing, which is, as per the definition, is what concept? Secondary risk. We are actually talking about the secondary risk, which may arise while implementing the response of the primary risk. So what is the secondary risk over here? The secondary risk is that some of the residents may get some health issues because of the use of this pesticide in that area. So how do we deal with secondary risk? The answer to your to this question will be the answer to this particular scenario as well. We deal with secondary risk by first qualifying that risk in the risk register associating that secondary risk to the primary risk so that we understand that this risk is actually the result of the implementation of a risk response of some other risk. And then we perform analysis, assessment, probability, impact, scoring, priority, response planning, everything the way we do with any other normal risk. That's it. We will be going with that answer. This is the answer to this question. That is, we have come across a secondary risk. We qualify that in the risk register, and you assess you deal with it like any other risk in the project. This is categorically mentioned in the scenario that we cannot compromise on the response plan of the primary risk for the reason that response plan is needed. Right? So we are not going with canceling the response plan or suspending the secondary risk or anything like that. We are dealing with the primary risk with the agreed upon plan, and we are going to deal with the secondary risk as well. Right? Which is option C. Option C is exactly talking about this, that you record and assess the secondary risk and you treat it like any other risk in the project. So C is the right answer. I will quickly talk about A, B, and D, although I have already talked about it, but just to further talk about it like in a more systemized manner, in a process-oriented manner. Option A is wrong, because it talks about suspending the project as the secondary risk will negatively impact the residents' health, which is not acceptable. If there is a risk that may impact negatively in any negative way, in this case, the negative impact is the compromise on the residents' health, you deal with that risk. Right? This is exactly why we have risk management area in any project. You know the risk, you know the consequences, you know how it may impact the project and the different stakeholders. So just come up with the right response plan. You are not going to suspend the project on this account. Yes, some risks are that much critical or that much devastating that probably the organization's appetite for the risk on that project is breaching. And in that case, yes, suspension of the project is a possibility. However, as much as we know in the scenario, no such information is available. Okay. So A is wrong. Why not B? Consult with health experts to provide a risk trigger before using pesticide that will impact the residents. So when I posted this question on our regular Wednesday RMP poll, we got to know that around 66% of the audience went with option B and 28% went with option C. I don't know for what reason. Consulting with the health experts to provide a risk trigger before using pesticides. The question is, what do we understand by risk trigger in risk management area? Trigger is an alarm. It's like an early call that gives an idea to the risk manager, to the team or the project manager that now is a time to apply risk response plan. And if you are going to miss on it, then the risk may materialize into issue or into missed opportunity, depending on its impact in the project. What is the purpose of trigger over here? There is no purpose of trigger. You do not need a trigger to understand that now is the time to start using pesticides. The pesticides are being used, or they like it is decided that they would be used. So consulting with the subject matter experts to provide a trigger before using pesticide. See, trigger is like a different thing. If you have a misunderstood trigger with like a type of notification or an intimation that everybody is going to get informed that now we are using pesticide and you take care of that at your end, then you are actually leaving that health issue or that health perspective on the residents. You are not taking care of that matter at your end, right? So even if this is the case, that if you are letting the residents know that now we are applying pesticides and you just be careful about it, so this is wrong. You can't put that matter on them. This is on you. This is on you uh, as the health authority or as the active caretaker of the matter. This is not on the residents, right? So a risk trigger is not going to be helpful for the residents, right? And even if you are talking about this risk trigger for the uh, for that person or the team who is actually dealing with this matter, that a trigger is going to be helpful before you actually start using the pesticide. This is also not helpful, because even if there is a trigger, the matter is still going to be the same, because you are still going to use the pesticide and still the impact of that pesticide is going to happen on the area's residents. So how the risk trigger is helping with this matter? Risk trigger is only, nudging an alarm that now is the time to apply pesticide. Now is the time to take care of that risk. That's it. It doesn't deal with the secondary risk. It doesn't deal with that matter that may impact the health of some of the residents. Risk trigger is not going to help you with that. Risk trigger only tells you that now is the time to apply this risk. That's it. Does that solve the matter? No, it doesn't. Because you don't have the response to that secondary risk as of now. Right? So B is not the answer. I think those who have went for it, they misunderstood risk trigger with something else. D. Why D is wrong? Proceed with the project as normal since a minor number of residents will be affected negatively. I believe this one is clearly an outlier. Of course, this is a serious matter. And of course, you cannot proceed with the project as normal. Of course, you need to take care of that risk that has occurred or that has appeared, or not occurred, but appeared as a product or by result of that primary risk. So you need to deal with that. Of course, you can't just sit on that and you can't let that become an issue. So D is definitely unknown. So C is the right answer to this question, and I believe you like this question like the way I did. If you have any follow-up questions for me, feel free to drop that in the comment area. Feel free to reach out to me via WhatsApp or via other company channels and have a word with me, and I will definitely clarify your concept. I will be back very soon with a new RMP scenario. Till then, take care.